Welcome to UC Today with me, David Dungay. Today I'm here with Mr. Iain Sinnott, Sales and Marketing Director of Uboss. Welcome to the show, Iain. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thanks, David. A bit warm, sunny day. It's lovely, but yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Yes, it is sweltering all over the UK today, but let's not complain. It'll be rainy and miserable before long, I am sure.
Absolutely.
So before we get into today's conversation, we're going to be talking about the Broadworks community and how that's changed over the last couple of years. But before we get into that, Iain, do you want to give us a brief 30-second rundown of yourself and the business?
Okay, well, so as people who know me will know, I've got a couple of hats to wear. The Uboss program that we run is all about our cloud management platform, which has been in development and in operation for 10, 15 years now. And really and truly, it is a true cloud management ecosystem, originally designed around our relationship with the Broadworks Platform as a Broadworks Platform owner in the UK. But it's evolved along this line of what true cloud is and what service providers and resellers need to deliver to their customer base. So it's evolved from being a Broadworks management platform to managing a full cloud ecosystem, lots of different leading applications and services that really get to the crux of small, medium, and large enterprise requirements. On top of that, I've got the vanilla IP environment, which is a really successful reseller channel, which again is made up of people who believe in delivering true cloud solutions for the customers, on-demand services, short contracts, and really existing in this new space of cloud application deployment.
Great. And you mentioned there, a UK-based platform, but more recently you've extended your horizons, shall we say, and moved into the Australian market. Do you want to give us a bit of an update on that and what that looks like at the moment?
Really excited about the Australian guys. So up until now, we've sold in North America. So we've sold in the USA and Canada. We've got a number of partners across Europe, so we've got European plays. But going out and reaching out to Australia was quite an interesting deployment. It's the first time we've gone into AWS, so that was something new for the development team to land through. It's the first time we've actually deployed both the provisioning system and the billing system in a single deployment move. So it was quite a complex project, well run by a now well-versed team. And we were dealing with not only direct but indirect sales. So the customer down there, Novum, have got channel players, so about 40 channel players. They've got dealers as well, so resellers under the Novum brand. So there was both those sorts of deployment system put down there, multiple Broadworks packages, and integrating that billing system, not just from them to their partners, but from their partners to their customers as well. So it was a big project, 25,000 users coming on to the Uboss community. And we've been talking to these guys for some time because they were with a company called Entwine, which was one of our competitive platforms. Nice bunch of people, good platform, but it was very voice and Broadworks centric. And I think what we're seeing in from this deployment and from other conversations, that the whole community has gone from being mainly BroadSoft to BroadSoft being a cornerstone of what is now quite a broad and complex portfolio. And again, if you're going to remain true cloud, if you're going to deliver it seamlessly to the customers, if you're going to push out self-service so that you can keep your management costs down, then you have to have a platform that can deal with multiple applications.
Oh, great! So, 25,000 users. That's fairly a fairly lofty sum of people there. What has this done to your user base as a whole? What does that look like right now with the addition of this new acquisition?
Well, I think Uboss is now managing about almost 100,000 users across the world. I can't remember how many services we're doing, but tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of services are being managed by Uboss, and the transactions per day count is obviously going up because it's the platform owners, the resellers, and the customers themselves that are transacting every minute of every day. So that's been a sort of a natural evolution as more people buy into this concept of true cloud delivery. But from our point of view, Australia was slightly easier than we thought because we've got our development team in India, so the time difference was actually half what you might consider to be the challenge. And there, although it's quite a lot of man hours that go into this, 6,000 man hours or so, we've got a good tight team for these deployments, and it involves bringing all of the Broadworks information out into the Uboss database and completing that data transfer. But again, when we did it the first time, it was an interesting learning curve, but we've done it quite a few times now, so it's not such a big deal to pull out that level of data and manage it correctly. So,
great. Well, we're talking about Broadworks, so let's talk about Broadworks. The community around Broadworks. How is it bringing value to customers? Right now today.
Well, I think it's really interesting because Broadworks itself, maybe 2018, it was the big name, it was the big shout. If you put Powered by Broadsoft on your materials, it commonly came up with a good marketing result. But then we've gone into this pre-pandemic Cisco purchase, this post-pandemic environment, and the brand of Broadsoft kind of dropped away and the conversation dropped away. But you just look at the leading brand at the present time, Microsoft Teams, and the thing that the but that always comes in, fantastic, but the voice proposition isn't very strong. What people are tending to forget is that nailed on Broadsoft is the most robust, most reliable, most rounded voice communications cloud platform that you can do. And if you're able to build on top of that, you're getting your fundamentals right and then bringing customers into the whole new world of collaboration and that sort of thing. So do that and then add the Cisco WebEx piece on top of it. And I think everybody should be pretty buoyant about what the Broadsoft community can do. And I suppose the only thing that I would say I think has been a real shame is the fact that community, that co-opetition that existed between the Broadworks platform owners from across the globe, it's kind of been lost in the loss of the Connections event that used to happen every year. The Cisco event really didn't pay much mind to the Broadsoft legacy and that sort of thing. It was more talking about WebEx, and you can understand that with the team's pressure. But there's a really experienced, robust, grown-up group of platform owners across the globe who can make a substantial difference to Cisco and WebEx's success with this new competitive environment that they're in. So.
Okay, well, I want to just pick up on a point there, Iain. You mentioned, the voice platform being really the foundation of these services that you can build on top of. Is there not an argument today that maybe the voice doesn't need to be that foundation? Maybe that foundation should be another service like the collaboration element? I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, I think definitely collaboration, virtual meetings, mobility, customer experience, they're the glamour end of the sale at the present time. But, you can fit a lovely looking body on a car. If it's got a rubbish chassis, it doesn't get anywhere very quickly. So I think you have to remember that underlying all of this, voice and the way we do voice at the present time is still fundamental. And that transition will probably take maybe 5 years. I don't think voice ever goes away, but I think it was more likely to move across to being an app-driven voice. You won't dial a number, you'll just agree to click a link and that'll bring a voice call or a video call or a collaboration call into play. But at the present time, the marketplace needs to have reliable voice, and the more mobility you get back into the marketplace, the more voice becomes part of it. Because at the moment, we're all sat still, we've all got our Wi-Fi, we can jump on cameras and it's great. The minute we jump on a train, jump in a car, it's GSM. You've got to go to GSM. When you start moving around and being in different places, you're going to need to call in from a traditional phone call basis and not arrange these virtual meetings all the time. But I don't disagree. The talking point, the deliverable is very much about meetings, collaboration, voice, and customer experience. But none of them can be separated. You can't forget one piece. Forget one corner of your chair and your customer will topple to the ground. So you need to put them all together. So Broadsoft as a platform is still very important and very strong, but it has to be in conjunction with the other pieces.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about best-of-breed applications or integrations, rather. I mean, is that still a major differentiator for the platform?
Well, we'll probably talk about this until the cows come home, but when it comes to platform owners and resellers, one of the things they have to keep their mind on is value in the supply chain. If they lose value in the supply chain, then they're likely to they'll lose their position in the supply chain. So now we're talking about going to see customers, and we're talking about what is the composite requirement of a customer. And that will be voice, meetings, collaboration, customer experience, working from home, mobility, but then backing that up with analytics, connectivity, desktop applications like 365 and the Google services, integration with CRM, integration with email services, and probably a lot of other things that each individual a platform owner or business taking services to market will need to bring together. So somewhere there is a wheel of products that has to integrate and be managed nicely and efficiently, and you have to be able to control the contract rules, you have to be able to control the commercial rules, and you have to be able to do it in real time wherever possible and deploy it as a self-service item so you get the fluidity of cloud. So when you talk about people like a Kixi, Mondago, Carcapo, all of those guys who've been working around the Broadworks community for a long time are adding to this, very stable voice platform and creating this environment where you can work the customer experience and work the integrations. Bring in people like Tango Networks who are producing an endpoint that's a GSM phone, and you're starting to deliver what the customer's actual day-to-day requirement is. I think it's vital. And I think, again, as I said, if we're going to remain relevant in a marketplace, we have to keep the marketplace focus on what needs to be delivered rather than what can be conveniently delivered by the big boys on their own.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the more popular, I guess, ISVs in that space. Let's talk about the Broadworks community. After the Cisco acquisition, you mentioned already, the connections event that kind of faded away, the Broadsoft brand kind of faded away. What's that community like now? What has that really been like post Cisco acquisition?
Well, funnily enough, since we started publicizing the fact that we can now deploy WebEx in one click and create the devices at the same time as deploying the service, we've heard a lot more from the Broadworks community than we have in the last little while. So definitely the community is still out there. I work with the CCA. I'm a board member of the CCA as well, the Cloud Comms Alliance. And we're reaching out more. There's quite a few Broadworks players in that community already, but we're reaching out to more guys because there is a very relevant conversation about how each of the experiences is coming through and changing those businesses. And that co-opetition that we used so strongly for 10 years as a Broadworks team is going to be vital now. So I'm hoping that we see more of that community together at the Cavell gig in Phoenix later on this year. I'm hoping that there's a plane going between the UK and the US by then, and I can join them as well. But I think if the Broadworks community comes together and uses its assets and all of its community, its supply partners and the experience and the bases and the focus and the sales teams of these platform owners and their partners, I think it's a very strong community to actually lead business from around the world into the right blend of services rather than simply the most convenient blend of services.
Yeah. Oh, and more specifically, though, around Uboss, your platform, how has that? Have you really built on the success of those sort of prior 10 years in that community? How have you built on that under the Cisco banner?
Well, I think before the Cisco thing went on, we sort of sat there and we decided that Broadworks was an application. Just an application, that our reason for being was not to be a Broadworks platform management system, but to be a cloud ecosystem. So I think we have assisted ourselves in using our BroadSoft very strongly with the vanilla IP proposition, and we're assisting more and more people through the increasing number of APIs to drive things like a Kixi and Carcapo and Mondago services through. But I think in terms of boiling it down to the salespeople, if you have no questions to ask, the only question being asked is how much. You've got to ask questions about how people work, where people work, why people work, what their resolution is supposed to be, and you've got to have a collection of answers to those questions which fit the value of the work that's being done. So you go to the top end of a call center and you can have a nice system, or you can have a content guru system or whatever. when you're in the middle ground, it has to be delivered at a cheaper price, or you have to try and get 80-90% functionality through at a price that can be sustained by the value of the business it writes. And I think, again, ourselves and our partners, I mean, we've had quite a lot of development in terms of rolling out new application services to our other BroadSoft partners who've maybe not taken a Carcapo and a Kixie service, but now they're coming back to us going, can you introduce us to these guys so we can add these services in? It is becoming more and more relevant to produce this sort of thing. But equally, if you're going to stay relevant, you have to be prepared to widen the conversation and create the need for the nuanced products, because otherwise you just get shot out the value chain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let's talk about your partner channel now. We've seen for a while the requirement for varying types of different models around reseller models, agent models, dealer models, whatever you would like to call them. I mean, what are you seeing now that you're in multiple geographies? What are you seeing from that side of things from a partner perspective?
It boils down. We were talking about it today, actually, in an internal vanilla IP meeting, and that is that you have to have a belief in what you're going to do. We're all selling similar products. We're all selling similar products because of the similar requirements, etc. But what do we actually believe we're delivering? And we believe that we can deliver the right technology to each individual and each process within a business to ensure the maximum productivity. Now, in order to do that, you have to be prepared to ask about the business that you're working with and what they're trying to achieve, how they're trying to achieve it. So for me, it's not just accumulating the portfolio and accumulating the management tool to handle it. It's actually believing that you're doing it for a justified reason, that there is an end game that benefits the customer. And sure, it benefits you because you're going to have multiple revenue streams. You're going to have a very sticky customer, and you're going to have a long, valuable relationship with your customer base. But behind it is something more important, and that's that you understand what cloud is, what it can be, and what it delivers to the business. But it only does that if you match the right bits with the right requirements. And that's really what our channel is. And we haven't got the biggest reseller channel in the UK, but that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be definitively different, better, stronger, and more attuned to the actual requirements of the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on to my final question of today's conversation. There's a lot of partners out there. They're looking at the current landscape, the vendor landscape. We're seeing a lot of ginormous brands in the market. Microsoft, Zoom just today actually acquired Five9, the contact center player. But how can partners really? How do they decide who they trust from a long-term perspective when it comes down to sort of customer ownership and etc. and the things you just spoke about?
Well, I think the Zoom move was really interesting because prior to that, I was going to say something in the region of, you've got Microsoft with their dramatic push. They can reach through to every customer. They were selling them 365 and Word and PowerPoint and Excel years ago. So they know where the customer is. Very dangerous because they can reach straight through. Cisco always had a better reputation with hardware. So they're a known safe brand, but they don't really have a direct connection with the customer. Maybe not so dangerous just yet. And Zoom won it through the consumer. So they became the consumer's hero through the early stages of lockdown. So you could see them coming into the bottom part of the marketplace and grabbing the 4, 5, 6s and up to 10s. They just bought a great contact center. So now what, they're going to come down in at the other end as well. They're going to play that game. The question is, who do you trust? And the answer in business always is the same. Absolutely nobody. If you're relying on somebody else's behavior for the security of your business, you will likely run into trouble. The thing you have to trust is your belief in your value in the marketplace. And unless you're creating your value, your story, your portfolio, your mission, then you will run the risk of being framed out because you are less valuable to the customer and less valuable in the supply chain than you need to be to sustain. So from my point of view, it is, what do you believe? How do you construct your portfolio around the belief? How do you communicate that out? Who do you partner with to create the right answers for your customers, to get them what you're promising to get them, and then put it together and work hard. Because, if everybody was enjoying a nice, quiet 2016 to 2019 period of general growth, but not too much excitement, it's all off. All bets are off. The big boys are running really fast now. And if we're, as platform owners, the old Broadworks community or many other different communities, if we're going to sustain the value and we're going to support the customers properly, we got to work really hard and we got to do it now.
Yeah, we do. Okay, well, look, Iain, I think that's a great place to end today's discussion. Thank you so much for joining me. And, of course, congratulations on busting through that 100,000 user mark as well.
It genuinely is exciting. And what's really nice about it is we're getting this bigger community of Uboss people. We used to be the Uboss user that was selling Uboss, and now we've got a community of different Uboss platform owners around the globe. And the feature request thing, which I'm sure you've seen on Uboss, where everybody's allowed to put feature requests in, we're now getting them from, locations around the world for different reasons. And it's fantastic for the dev team to be driven much, even a greater percentage coming from real life requirements from the user base out there. So it's a good time. It's a good time for us. And again, as long as we work as hard as our partners do, then we'll all have a decent share of it by the end of it. So.
Absolutely. Great. Well, look, thanks for that, Iain. And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's discussion, please give us a like and a share on social media. It's always greatly appreciated. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.